Greetings, everybody. This is the fireside, extremely belated, concerning the week ending May 17th. I believe it's the third week, the second full week of May. And so, first of all, I have to just apologize profusely for not getting this out by Saturday. That's the premise of this whole channel, is that I give you regular updates of the news every week so that you can cut through the BS. And I failed in that duty. And yes, this was a quieter week than probably the average one, but you still deserve to know that, and deserve, I don't use that word a lot, but yeah, it's my job as what I'm doing as a public figure. It's my job to update you on the news and tell you when it's a quiet week and when it's a loud week. And I have not done that. So, anyway, the first point of news is that this is that Trump, just a few days ago, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, Trump said on national television, quote, "There's only so many times I can pick up that little phone in a day." I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, his nomination that this is concerning only failed by one vote. He would have had to make one phone call. Thom Thilis found a backbone and refused to allow a fucking J6er, pardon my French, a J6er to be the district attorney for Washington, D.C. That's what Trump was going to do, but he refused. He was the one Republican. He did what he should have done on the day that Hegseth was getting in, and frankly, I'm glad he didn't, because I don't want a competent second right now. Not one that supports Trump anyway. But this J6er lost their confirmation this first time that the actual Senate, not the ghost of the Senate, not what we think we can get through the Senate, not somebody dropping out, but the actual Senate blocked a nomination for Trump. And it shows that he's getting weaker by the day right now. And they never would have done this a month, 2 months ago. And they let Dan Bongino do what he did. They would have never allowed a nomination like this to fail 2 months ago. But they are getting less and less afraid of him by the day. And there's a chance, and we'll get to that at the very end, there's a chance that he may be impeached before the midterms, and I would love that. I would love for him to only have another year. Every month of that's too long, with the harm and the suffering that he's putting this country through. But he said his excuse was, there's only so many times in a day I could pick up that little phone. He was clearly very confused. No idea how weak that makes him look. Or maybe he doesn't care. But yeah, this guy definitely is. I think that that's a Freudian slip. I think this guy definitely is quite unfit for the office. And I have a news reel of what I'm describing. available in the description of Lawrence O'Donnell's commentary on that, and it matches mine. He's getting weaker by the day. We're so lucky that he's president now, supposedly the president, not really, and not 4 years ago. We're so lucky. Anyway, so there's a bunch of regret videos that I have available for you. Just more indications that he's getting weaker and weaker by the day. Even Ben Shapiro is regretting his support for Trump and ripping into him over and over and over again on his podcast. This is not a one-off. He's doing it over and over and over again. So, this regret is good news. We have to use it. And not from Ben Shapiro, per se. He's just one person. But for the millions of voters that voted Republican, for whatever reason they did, we have to be able to use we have to be able to harness their regret by offering them something worth living for. And that is a major priority. So, this is going by pretty quickly, because it's been, again, a quiet week. So the Supreme Court continues to uphold the authority of the lower courts. They're not going to stab them in the back and make a deal with Trump, which is, and they're doing it that 7-2. 7-2 is a common ruling now for all this extra constitutional BS. And there was a lot of alarmist predictions that this was not going to happen, but they are. And I think that they're recognizing. I think that 3 of those justices that used to vote conservative are recognizing that this is something else. This is not about conservatism. And it has to end. And better late than never. I would have preferred that they had recognized that on J6. I would have preferred that they recognized that when there was a question about Trump being... Sorry about that. About Trump being taken off the ballot. But better late than never, I suppose. So, and some final things. So, Al Green and his articles of impeachment, I'm going to give you a link to them, and it's definitely worth thinking of. Worth watching, sorry. But I don't think that I don't agree with his decision to be very light in terms of the presentation of those articles. I think that he put a lot too little effort to convince people across the aisle to do those, which we all know that they're not going to impeach him immediately right now like they should. But that doesn't mean you don't try to make it costly for them and create cognitive dissonance, and maybe someday, in a year, in 6 months, they'll be willing to do it. You have to be willing to put in that kind of effort. Wait, the House or the Senate. And, by the way, how dare any Democrats, I've heard of some Democrats, and I'm not going to bother linking it, because it's self-explanatory. You can search for it if you want. I've seen that there have been Democrats that have called the impeachment a farce. How dare you do that? How dare you say that? Because this impeachment impeachment as a power, and I know that this particular one at this particular time is not going to work. I wasn't born yesterday, but impeachment is the way that this guy is going to get out of office, the way that we're going to have free and fair elections, the way that we're going to be able to have the rule of law again. That is going to come from impeachment. And the impeachment is our North Star. Impeachment is what the general strike is for. What do you think the general strike? A general strike will shut everything down. Yeah. What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of a general strike? It's not to have him lawlessly deposed. It's not to have a military dictatorship. It's not to have a coup. It's impeachment. It's to get the House to do what, and the Senate to do what they should be doing under the Constitution. What they're perfectly allowed to do. And we have to make it so that we have people that are willing to consider impeachment in the House and in the Senate by the time we get impeachment and conviction, by the time that we have a general strike potentially, which is something that I've already spoken about. We would be very susceptible to a general strike because our government relies on contractors so much. There isn't really much of a separation between the civilian and the government economy, and so it's very easy for something like that to shut down the government if it becomes too tyrannical. But when that happens, we have to already have people on the other side regularly thinking about and weighing the idea of impeachment so that they understand that that's their cue and that it's time to impeach when the general strike happens. And so how dare any Democrats say that it's a waste of time or blah blah blah. They're acting like we still have the rule of law and we don't. How dare they say that impeachment of this guy is a waste of time, it's a circus, whatever. How dare they say that? Can't get past that. It's absolutely disgusting. But I don't think that it was good of him to say that. I think that he should have put more effort to show that this man is assaulting the Constitution and to really make sure that these people understood that he's assaulting them. He's assaulting their power as Republican House members and senators and people like that. He's tearing down programs they voted for. He's just that this is not worth it. That they're putting their lives in danger by acting this way. He could have mentioned how they were planning on breaking the musing about breaking the speech and debate clause. And I think that was something that happened last week, not this week. But seriously, they're musing about doing that. And it's just disgusting. So, yeah. And so that's the impeachment story. And he has done his articles of impeachment. He has introduced those articles. Al Green. He did that several times unsuccessfully during the first time that Trump was where he was actually the second self-proclaimed thing that he's having. He did it several times, Al Green, and he could do it again. So finally, Joe Biden, God bless him, he got cancer. God bless him. And even if he was a crappy person, I don't take glee in anybody suffering. I would not take glee in this self-proclaimed president getting cancer. Joe Biden's cancer was prostate cancer, which is a very common thing for older men. Get screened if you're in your upper 40s or above. I know I'm not the person to tell you that. It's rich coming from me, a young man, but get screened for it, especially if you've been frisky, if you've been looking for love in all the wrong places when you were younger. That can be, there's a lot of diseases and things like that that can cause that. I don't know. Maybe I should cut that part out. But there's a million reasons you should check for that. Anyway, but if Trump got a cancer of any kind, I wouldn't take glee in it. I'd be happy that he was out of commission and unable to hurt people. But I would not take glee in the fact that Trump is suffering. I don't do it in general. But I'm going to talk about Joe Biden a little bit. It's very fashionable to dump all over him right now. And yes, he did fail. And he was not a great politician during the years before he was president. His presidency was definitely his finest moment. And there was a lot of... He made so many mistakes, and I don't think that they were all mistakes. I think a lot of it was campaign bribes and stuff like that. He was a very typical politician of his day. But he was better than that when he was president. I think a lot of it was because of what he learned on J6. And he did some amazing things. Whether student loan forgiveness, prescription drugs, but also actual legislation like CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a gigantic global warming related bill to help us out on that issue. And he appointed Lena Khan to the FTC. He did all kinds of amazing things, and antitrust related. If he had done a little bit more, I feel like this country might have, if things had happened a little bit faster, maybe this country would not have been so willing to take its own life the way it did. But in any case, Joe Biden's main flaw was that he overestimated the American people. It wasn't it's that clear, it's that square. That was his main flaw. It wasn't a flaw of character per se. And what he would have had to see, and it's a very hard thing to look at because you feel very selfish when you look at it this way, especially when you're the person that won the election personally, rather than just having your team win. But what he would have had to look at to realize how close we came in 2020 is he would have had to look at the COVID rates of death and he would have had to look at the margins in the election, and he would have had to see that, oh my word, this is happening. It's less than a quarter. The margins in all these states are less than a quarter of the COVID deaths. I almost certainly would have lost if these people that supported him had made it to election night. And, it's a very hard thing to think about because you love those people. They're people just like anybody else. You don't want them to die. I specifically love them a great deal. I understand a lot of their grievances. I've outlined them in my paper. But when you want to be president for all Americans, not just for the people that voted for you, but it's very difficult to recognize that, wait a second, if these people had lived, all the other millions of people that voted for Trump would have had to get what they voted for. And wouldn't that be so horrible? It would. He wouldn't have been demented. He wouldn't have had the obvious weakness that he has now. And and Rick Wilson made a video about that. I may or may not have it in the description, but you can just look, if it's not there, just look up the Rick Wilson, and it's his newest video as of the time that we filmed. It's about Biden's cancer. And towards the end he says that it would have been a much darker world, even than it is now, if he had won and if Joe Biden had lost that election. Joe Biden's main flaw, though, was that he overestimated the American people. He did not understand how alluring and irresistible, ultimately, oblivion, just taking our own lives collectively, was to the American people. He did not understand that. He thought that the American people were the same American people that he grew up with, that he grew up admiring, the people from the war years. And we're not. We're a lot more traumatized by very dumb things that should have never been done, rather than by an actual war or any kind of real suffering. We have it now, but the chicken or the egg, which one came first? It was the trauma that came first, then that real physical suffering in the United States. But we are a people. He did not understand that we were a people that needed to be babysat. And if he had understood that, he would have gone after Trump much more aggressively. He would have fired, Merrick Garland, and replaced him with somebody that was willing to go after Trump vigorously, to make sure that he didn't get on the ballot, that he wasn't able to win primaries and campaign and make it into a position where we could elect him. And he would have also, because he would have known that it would likely be irresistible to us. And if he had known that we were not the American people that we were, that he grew up with as a child, then he would have put effort into finding a successor rather than just assuming that the American system and the American people would produce a successor by the time that we were gearing up for the 2024 race that could actually take on Trump. He would have actually put in effort to make sure that he could find that person, if the person that would be able to provide a vision that was worth living to the majority of Americans. He would have been able to do that rather than wait for everybody else. But those were his main flaws. It wasn't really about character. It was that he overestimated the us, the American people. And so, God bless him. He was there when we needed him. I can't say he was perfect by any means. I would have much rather had Bernie Sanders back in 2016. Or even in 2020. He probably would have done okay. And he definitely would have won re-election. But I'm grateful that we have anything, frankly. And Joe Biden was very helpful to us. And I don't know. I definitely regret some of what I said about the cancer thing. I don't quite know what I'm talking about. But God bless you all. And I hope to see you next week. Maybe I'll make a principles video in the middle of this week. I've really screwed up big time. And I film these videos live, by the way. That's why why all my gaffes are still there. Things that I didn't know what I'm talking about. God bless you all. And I will see you when I see you, but definitely by Saturday. I'm not going to screw up like this again. Take care. Bye.